From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. If you have any interest in Tennessee and Nashville history or in our politics or our journalism, you're going to love this Inside Politics show today. We're focusing on a new novel. It's entitled West End. The book is causing quite a bit of talk from people around town trying to figure out who the characters really are, and for that matter, who the author is. The book cover says the author is Crockett White, but that's not his true identity. It's Jim Squires who's our guest today. Jim's a Nashville native, had a very distinguished career in journalism, both as a political reporter at the Tennessean and nationally with the Chicago Tribune, as well as being editor there and executive vice president. And the paper won 9 Pulitzer Prizes under his leadership. Jim, welcome home, and thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Pat. I'm delighted to be here.
You've written several books during your career. Why'd you use a cover name for this one?
Well, all those books and all the newspaper stories, which got to be millions of words, almost all of them found their way back into Nashville. And all of those books and all of the work I'd done up until this, it was pure journalism, as true as I could make those stories. And so we debated whether, when we come to something that's pure fiction, whether if Jim Squires' name on it, everybody's going to think it's true. And we didn't want people to think it's true.
There actually was a Crockett White.
So there is a Crockett White. He's my great-great-grandfather. He died in 1898. He was David Crockett White, and he's buried in a grave in Wartburg, Tennessee.
But people don't think about Davy Crockett, they think about the Alamo, but before Walt Disney got him, Davy Crockett was known for being a storyteller.
That's right.
Your ancestor was a storyteller,
maybe
too?
Crockett White, my great-grandfather was a storyteller. At least his genes survived somehow.
Now, one of the books you've written in the past that is true, at least based on your experiences, is The Secrets of the Hopewell Box. It's considered to be, I think, the definitive work on old-time Nashville politics from the 50s, 60s, a little bit of the 70s. It was drawn in some ways from your childhood memories and some of your memories as a young adult. Any of the Hopewell Box is an inspiration for some of the things that we see in West End?
Absolutely. The Hopewell Box was a remake of a bunch of short stories that I wrote when I was a very young man as a Neiman Fellow at Harvard. And I actually sold those short stories to a publisher. And one of my good friends, who was the book editor of Newsday and had edited those stories, talked me into giving that check back. And he said, these are pretty good stories, but they might make a good novel someday. So I put them in a briefcase, and where they stayed for 20 years. And then I had a contract to write a second book for Random House after I had read all about it, which was about newspapers. I had to do a second book. And so they said, why don't you do something about Nashville? And I said, I got it right here in this briefcase. They looked at it and they said, no, we need nonfiction.
When you see the words West End on the front of your book, can people read Nashville? I mean, there's a lot of resemblance in that book to Nashville.
Well, you know, even the cover looks like that might be the Siegenthaler Bridge, or I mean, the buildings are similar. That's actually a cover from the West End of Vancouver, British Columbia.
Now, is that right?
That's
it's
right.
Not Nashville, but some of the
all.
buildings look like it could be.
And we never mentioned Nashville. This is Bluff City. And Bluff City could be anywhere in Richmond, Birmingham, Knoxville, Memphis. But there is a obvious, we did not try to hide the fact that it could also be Nashville.
Cover of the book also says this is a novel of envy, revenge, and dirty money. Now, that's bound to get people's attention, but without giving the story away, what does that description mean?
Well, those are the rudimentary elements of mankind. I mean, if you write about politics, political novels, actually, what we should say about this book, the greatest political novel in my opinion, in American history, and the one that certainly impacted my life, was Penn Warren's All the King's Men. This book is in the shade of All the King's Men. It's obviously not that quality, that length, that depth, and I'm no Penn Warren. But it is similar to that in the sense that it is a roman à clef. It's about the fictional characters going through doing real-life things, the real-life experience of fictional characters. So all the things happened, but these characters are all composites and creatures of my imagination, not real people.
Now, your book's description, your dedication is to Frank, Sig, George, Cecil, and John Jay. Is that a clue about who these people may resemble in some ways?
No, it is not. It is certainly you can see the resemblance in two of the characters. Two of the characters resemble to some degree, and some more than others. John Siegenthaler, who is Sig in the dedication, and John J. Hooker, both of whom I have known for 50 years.
Those may more appear in composite characters?
But they're all composite characters. Neither John Siegenthaler or John Hooker did these things in this book. The other three people in there were prominent in this era. This is a novel of time and place. It is about the rise and fall of the progressive political era between the 60s and 80s, where democracy seemed to move forward, and the country began to look like the Constitution intended that we have. And it was certainly those of us who were in it believed that the era of the press in that span of time was a golden age for the press too. And so this is about the rise and fall, or at least the rise and stalling of the progressive political movement, and the death of the great print institution, which was important to democracy. The printed press and the job it did has disappeared.
Jim Squires is our guest. He's the author of a new book. It's called West End. Quite a bit of talk being caused about it in Nashville. More with Jim Squires after this break.